You're listening to Got Your Six Leadership Forged in Fire. I'm Dr. Tracy, a retired U.S. Army officer turned business strategist. This is where I bring real talk, real leadership lessons, and battle tested tools that shaped me as a leader and continue to shape the leaders I coach today. Each episode gives you clarity, courage, and the confidence to lead with intention. Whether the battles you face are in business, at home, or within yourself, let's lock in, get honest, and lead like it matters.
Can I ask you something before we even get started? If someone stripped away your title tomorrow, the position, the letters after your name, would people still follow you? Because here's what I've learned. Most of us confuse authority with influence. We think leadership shows up the day that we get promoted. The corner office is so fancy, the new title on the business card. But that's not where leadership lives. The leaders you remember, the ones who actually changed something in you, they weren't the ones demanding respect, were they? They were the ones who earned it. And usually they earned it by serving you first. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Got Your Six, the podcast where leadership is so much more than a title. It's a responsibility, don't you think? I'm your host, Dr. Tracy, retired U.S. Army officer, business strategist, immersive keynote speaker, leadership coach, and creator of the battle-tested leadership methodology. Each week, we take real leadership challenges and break them down into something you can actually use, whether you're leading a business, a team, your family, or honestly, yourself. Who better to lead than yourself? Showing up for yourself is incredible, isn't it? Guest has built her entire career around one idea, that the greatest influence doesn't come from status. It comes from service. All right. I am so excited about today's recording and our guest. Today, joining me is Detria Austin Everson. She is an executive, an author, a speaker, a servant leader, which I'm so excited to talk about today, with more than 2 decades leading across the nonprofit, healthcare, corporate, and financial worlds. I keep pulling in financial people for some reason. I must say something, right? She currently serves as the CEO of the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation, and she is the author of a book. I love the title, Serving is a Superpower. In it, she takes the idea that so many of us have been sold in our lives that leadership is about status, but instead, she shows us the real influence and the way it is built by serving people with purpose, consistency, and courage. Detria, thank you so much for being on Got Your Six. I know I probably chopped all of that up. Do you want to take a second to clean up what I said and maybe add a little bit? Tell us about yourself, and thank you for being here.
Oh, Tracy, thank you so much. It has been an absolute honor to be invited to come onto your show. I'm so grateful to be with you and your audience today. I will tell you that I have some exciting news. I am the most immediate past president of the John and Lillian Miles Lewis Foundation. I have taken the plunge to be full-time speaker and author and corporate consultant. And so I am super excited about this journey and
Love that.
excited to share that with you today. So my background has taken me many places. I grew up in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and in a family of restaurant owners. My parents most of my life, which is where a large part of my service has been trained. And so I am excited to be with you today. My experience has been everywhere from, as you said, nonprofit sector to work in the housing industry during the mortgage crisis. I actually ran the largest HUD-approved counseling agency in America, the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, as chief operating officer during some of the most difficult housing times our country has faced. And so that and a lot of my nonprofit work in Atlanta, Georgia, working on behalf of Ebenezer Baptist Church, creating a nonprofit for them named after Dr. King's father, the Martin Luther King Senior Community Resources Collaborative, all of which have given me ample opportunity to hone my service skills and take this message and walk it out in real life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have to say, though, I'm so glad that you shared that you're starting a new adventure here with my people. So exciting to hear that. Being a speaker and an author, a lot of people sometimes get stuck in how busy of a, because I do very similar, but I do a lot of things, and as you do, but they say, oh, it's so busy. How do you keep up with it? And I always love to have somebody ask that question, right? Because it gets you to have the opportunity to talk about how your voice gets to resonate in ways that people don't really realize, right?
I think you're right about that. It's amazing to
Yeah.
be on this journey and really focus on the message of serving as a superpower. It has been
Yeah.
well received. I am super excited about the message, the book, and all that it's going to entail. And so this next
Yeah.
chapter is really exciting, and I'm learning as much as I can along the way.
Yeah, I love that. So I just want to dive into it then, because bringing up the conversation of talking to people and having people resonate with serving as a superpower, right? When you hear people have this conversation, or when you hear this particular phrase, because I hear this often myself. So I'm curious how it resonates with you when people say leadership is a service, not a status. How does that feel to you personally? How does that resonate to you? Because people ask me that often. So I'm curious how you feel about that.
I think it's absolutely true. I found and learned
Yeah.
it in lessons I've done well, lessons I've not done so well as leaders. I think we need to be honest with ourselves. We continue to
Mm,
grow as leaders, and we should if we're paying attention. And what I find is
yeah.
that in leadership, when I focus more on the people first and serving others, we have the greatest success. I think organizations that get that right and realize that their leadership is there to serve the frontline staff and make sure not only are they taking care of the customers, whatever their customer base may be, they are also there to serve the people who are providing that service to the customers. And I think when we get that right, we have so much success out of it. Leadership is all about service, and status has very little to do with it because most people don't follow titles, they follow
Yeah.
good leaders.
That's true. I'm wondering though, because of your background, was there a defining moment in your career? Because I have defining moments in my career that I could pull out of a hat and easily have this conversation. But in your career, because you did work in many different facets. So I'm
Yes.
wondering, was there something that happened that completely changed how you saw leadership? And maybe was there a first person that showed you that servant leadership and what it actually looked like?
Well, I had a great example of my mother was a social worker. And so, in watching her advocate on behalf of children in need in our home state, it
Yeah.
was a real experience of seeing her go above and beyond. And she cared more about the final outcome for children, obviously moving them out of danger, but also the rehabilitation of families. And I think really working
Mm,
hard to see that type of work of family preservation as a part of what she really focused on and how she showed that example really helped me see that your job may have a specific task or title or duties that you're supposed to do. But I think it's more important when you think deeply about what happens past your moment of being with someone. And you're thinking
mm,
about how are you serving beyond just the immediate interaction that you are required to have with them and what happens to them next. That leadership
mm.
and her example really is what was shaping me. And quite frankly, Tracy, I did not realize until much later in my career when I started
Yeah.
focusing on not just my team, but also what happens beyond what my team does for the people that we were to serve in several of my leadership
Mm,
roles. So it was, I think,
yeah.
brewing in the background. And I finally, one day, the aha moment came that I
Yeah.
am exactly what my mother would have wanted me to be.
Yeah, isn't that so funny? I was with my daughter this weekend. She's an adult, and we were sitting together, and I had made a comment, and she said, "What's so funny? I'm becoming you and you're becoming Nana, my mother." And I said, "Is that true?" And it was a conversation about leadership. That's exactly what it was about. And
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we each guide the people around us, and it's always so hopeful as an adult that the people below you or people around you hear and it resonates with them. And that moment was like that aha moment, even for me, that made me realize, man, I really am more I am very much like my mother. My mother was a very, very strong leader in her own way and the things that
Mm.
she did and the foundational ways that she taught us to be strong people. And strong people for those around us, not just
Yes.
strong people for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what that's really about. But, coming from a military background like I did, I learned very early that rank might give you some authority. I actually, a few of my podcasts, when I did some solo ones, had to do with this particular topic because having a title doesn't necessarily always give you authority, right? It just guarantees that you have something you can put in front of your name, where trust is actually earned and respect is earned.
Totally.
Followership, right? Followership on top of like serving is what's earned. Do you think that organizations today still confuse authority with leadership? I'm just curious from outside the military.
I think there are leaders who have yet to figure that out. I think
Yeah.
you're right. You and I both talk about the upbringing and the example our parents set. I tell people
Yeah.
more is taught than taught. So people are watching your
Yeah.
actions more than they're listening to what you say most of the time. And that holds true not just for children and parent relationships, it holds
Yeah.
true in leadership sections. So if
Yeah.
you are a leader that is saying one thing, but your actions speak differently, I think organizations get it right if they hire leaders who already understand that, or they
Yeah.
have a culture that's set that focuses on servant leadership. People are not going to, as you say, follow the title necessarily. In the
Oh,
military, my father's a disabled veteran. My
yeah.
husband is a U.S. Army Air Force veteran, and I have other veterans in my family. So I understand and I've been
Yeah.
exposed to the experience of people having rank and what that means and how important it is. And it's well respected. It is respected, but I think the endearing and lasting thing comes from the consistency and how you take care of the people that you are supposed to be there to lead. Because if you
That's
think
right.
of them as people that you should serve, that begets the relationship, the longevity, the loyalty from your
Yeah.
consistency and how you actually show up for them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I love the way you brought that in. I knew your family was veterans. That's why I was wondering like how it resonates with you in both sides of that. And I think that I don't know why, but when you said what you did about when you were saying about your father, it just made me remember so many times in the military, there's this weird expression people say is do as I say, not as I do.
Mhm.
I did not live by that. And it
Mm,
actually angered me because as a child, my mom used to say absolutely opposite. Yeah.
nice. I love it.
Yeah, but then
That's
I'm
good.
encircled around people I'm going to war with, other senior leaders that would
Yeah.
actually jokingly say that. And and these people are younger. A lot of times they're under you and they're looking up to you. And even if they're not younger, they're looking up
Mm,
to you to
absolutely.
see and have you guide them, right? And back and forth guiding, I believe in. I always say I'm not the smartest person in the room. And so I was just curious what that looked like for you, even
Yeah,
looking at it on the outside, right? So many people spend years chasing titles, right? And
absolutely.
yeah, but I feel like even though you've moved up in so many different things you've done in your life, so many positions, so many changes, and even this new role that you're taking on, wouldn't necessarily say moving up, moving linearly, right? But you've built this career almost opposite. I feel like, and I sense is like, why do you believe service creates more influence than authority ever could? Because it seems like you're shifting it into almost an opposite narrative.
Because I think sometimes we misunderstand power in
Yeah.
our society. And,
Yeah.
as you and I were just talking about the people that you lead, what's powerful is to have people feel inspired by you, to have a people,
Exactly.
group of people who want to do things because of who you are as a person, not
Yeah.
because of an edict or something you demand or command that you can give them. And I think we today misunderstand what that influence and power really is. I think
Mm.
serving is a superpower because it actually creates new extraordinary abilities that are far beyond what I think a resume or anything else that we have that we can pat ourselves on the back for can actually bring us, Uh,
Yeah.
one thing I think is that every one of us actually possesses a superpower because we each have the ability to decide that we're going to serve other people.
Right.
Serving to me opens doors that credentials alone just cannot. And I think more importantly for leaders, it builds the trust, it strengthens relationships and creates the many opportunities and really does what we all, I hope, want to do is leave a lasting impression of something positive behind.
Absolutely. But because I love talking about leadership, I'm going to bring servant leadership into this because I think it's a really important conversation. Because I talk to people all the time about leadership, and servant leadership is something that people generally think that it means that you're lowering the bar, actually,
Yeah.
or avoiding hard conversations. But when you've led organizations where real decisions had to make or made an impact, like I did, or even you did in some of the
Yeah.
positions you were in the past, how do you stay? And I'm asking you this because I know this is a leadership that you value very much in the things that you've done with the people around you. How do you stay a servant leader while still holding people accountable? How can we have our listeners understand this piece without them thinking we're lowering the bar?
Absolutely. Well, service does not mean that you have to be someone that gets walked over or that you're soft. At least
Yeah,
understanding that being a
yeah,
servant is something that has to do with you being a person that's an easy pushover or things of that nature, or you diminish yourself in order to take care or do something for someone else. And quite frankly, it's the opposite. I
yeah,
think being a servant is one of the strongest things you can ever do because it's an intentional decision that you're going
yep,
to set aside sometimes your own needs at that moment and also go deep on what someone else may need from you. And in the leadership
it's
position, one
true.
of the things with your staff or your people who report to you in any level of ranking or organizational structure, your goal is to get the best out of that person on
Yeah,
behalf of your organization and for the mission that you have promised to serve under. And in doing so, you do that best by making sure you're taking care of those individuals. And it is the strongest thing you can do to learn how to serve others because it brings out something in you that you, quite frankly, did not realize was there. And oftentimes,
yeah,
the extraordinary outcomes from people who want to follow you and believe in you will be more significant than what your mission statement or what your strategic plan ever set out to do. People will
definitely.
amaze you when you show them how much you care for them, just how much they will help you meet your goals and exceed them.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that way because I personally feel like servant leadership or service to others is really more reciprocal and collaborative than any. And my book, I did not include servant leadership on purpose because I'm have another book coming out with that in there. That's coming out next year, actually. There's a new one coming out in between. But servant leadership is a special, in my opinion anyway, special type of
Mhm.
leadership, right? Because it is so collaborative. It is more reciprocal than most of the other leadership styles. Would you say that?
I agree. And I
Yeah.
think it's one that keeps giving.
Yeah, and I mean, people look at it like it's a weakness is being that kind of leader, but I firmly believe that even though in the roles I've had to be in where I'm going to war, so I have to be a little more authoritative or a little more less laissez-faire, but a little more
Mhm.
balanced, it
Mhm.
always my leadership style has always been collaborative. I
Right.
mean, because if you're not collaborative, if you're not serving other people, if you're not serving yourself, then really what are you even in the position you're in for? And then having other people understand that as well, right?
True. And I think
Yeah,
when we talk about, you mentioned earlier that it's not something where you are putting yourself aside or something where you
yeah,
can't hold people
no,
accountable. I think the important thing is that when you are serving others, one thing they recognize is that you're looking out for their best interests. And
yeah,
accountability
yeah,
is something that everyone needs. People who report to you hold you accountable for certain things. You obviously hold individuals who report to you accountable. And so I think it's important that we know that it doesn't, like I said, serving does not mean being soft. And I want to
right,
remind people of that. Having a servant posture as a leader is one of the strongest stances you can take. And it absolutely does not negate your ability to hold people accountable. As a matter
right,
of fact, just like they say with, as my parents were telling me when I grew up, they are have rules and things in place because they love me. And so,
yeah,
at first it sounds like something they're just making up to make me feel better about any type of rule or regulation or maybe a punishment that was in place. But at the end of the day, accountability is what makes us better. It keeps us
yeah.
bringing out the best in us. And I think when people realize they can trust you by how you serve them, then that accountability is something they accept more readily and they understand where it's coming from. That accountability goes out the window just because you're serving the people that report to you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. But you know what? This really gives me a really great segue to bring up your book, right? Because you're talking about service. And I don't know if you really wanted to bring the book up or not, but I think it's such a strong topic and such a strong outlet for people. And I had to bring it up, whether you wanted
Thank
me
you.
to or not. But I really want to know what made you sit down and write this book. And is there one story or a lesson that would keep readers coming back for more for it? I think that having a superpower is huge, and most people don't realize that they have a superpower inside of them. How would you, let's talk about your book for a minute. Let's
I
dive
know.
down that
I'm
rabbit
I'm
hole.
excited to talk about the book. It was
Yeah.
probably about 3 to 3.5 years of writing, and I was writing it all along while I was leading other organizations and doing work that I cared about, and also reflecting on the most amazing things that I have learned by the privilege that I have had.
Mm,
Each
yeah.
organization I've worked for has been an extreme privilege and an honor. I think anyone that gives their mission to you and puts it in your hands, and you are
Yeah.
called to lead it and take it to the next level or develop their strategic plan, all of that is very special, and I don't take any of that for granted. I'll
Right.
say that the book, Serving is a Superpower, is a culmination of a lot of different things. I'm super excited. I call it like it's a call to redefine leadership, to be honest with you. I mean, I look at it through the lens of service. The book is actually rooted in real stories and what I would call a lifetime of showing up for others. And I'd like to think that's the life I've lived, and the people who have interacted with me would feel the same way. And really, my goal is to really build a movement around one simple truth that you and I talked about earlier, is that service is not soft. It is strength
Yeah.
with humility. And that's the
Yeah.
message I want to get out in the book. I think the stories in the book that are powerful are all about the human ways in which I really, at times, it may have been difficult in my own life to think about serving others, push through,
Mm,
and how I made it through those times. So I hope that resonates with people, because I hope they see themselves and the humanity in each and every one of us. Just because we say serving is something you should do doesn't mean it comes easy. Doesn't mean there are
yeah.
days you wake up and you don't want to serve anyone. And I understand that, and I recognize that, and I resonate with those types of feelings, because
Yeah.
I too am human and have the exact same feelings. This book also talks about ways in which you push through those moments. And I share my top few secrets in the book about how I make it through those tough moments to continue to
Love
be the
that.
person I want to be and to show up for others. So I'm excited about the
Yeah.
book, and I really hope it's a genuine call to action. I'm even
Yeah.
more excited about the workbook that's coming, because it's a very personal journey that I'm going to take people on to really bring out that real servant in themselves. And so I'm looking forward to all of it.
I love that.
Yes. So the book is already
Yeah.
out, going through all the process. It's on Kindle
Yeah.
and Amazon and all the other
Perfect.
major you buy book. And so you can
Great.
find it anywhere with a simple Google search of my name or the word serve, the title,
Nope,
Serving is
we're
a
going to drop it
Superpower.
in our show notes. Don't you worry.
Oh,
We'll drop the
perfect.
link right in the
Perfect.
show notes. Yeah, there they can
Thank
find it
you.
right here after listening. They can go find it and go buy it right away. But let me
Absolutely.
ask you this, in like in reflection of the book, since it did
Mhm.
take you several years, let me ask
Yes.
you, thinking back, was there a moment where you said, I've got to write a book about this? Was there a
You
moment that
know,
you felt like that this needed to be heard?
I will tell you the why it was released, I think now. I think that's the most important thing. I figured out, because I've been writing it for a while and sitting down
Yeah.
finishing a book. Tracy, obviously, it's a
Yeah.
process. You
Yeah.
don't know when you really want to say, call it quits, say, okay, it's done, it's ready.
It's not, yeah.
And I don't think you ever really get there. Every time I read it, I'm like, oh, I should have said this or should have added that. But
Yeah.
I will say my why is deeply rooted in really just how I want to leave the world. I wanted to
Yeah.
leave something behind, to hope that I am making my contribution to making the world significantly better than what I found it. I find that
Yeah.
obviously in this current season of my life, I'm really focused on legacy, leaving an
Mhm.
impact. And I think now became my moment. I look back at
I love
several
that.
positions I've held, the type of people I've interacted with all over the world. And I thought, if I want to get up every day and have an opinion about what's going on in the world, at least I should put something out there to add my 2 cents to it. And this is one of them. And so,
Yeah.
from this book all the way to projects I may be working on in my hometown, all of it is about legacy. And why bring it out now is because it was inspired by my mother. She passed in December of last year. And I think as I had been sharing chapters with her and she was encouraging me to complete the process, I got to the point this past 6 months since she passed, and I thought, I'm going to go ahead and finish this. She had encouraged it all along the way. And it was a really special moment to be able to say that I got this book out now. And I was able to put a small dedication to her in the book. And so it means even
I
more to
love
me
that.
that is published right now, because otherwise I might not have had that moment in there. And so I am grateful to be able to
Yeah.
share that with the world as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing though. Legacy isn't loud, is it? I love that you brought that way. My mom passed away 4 years ago. I was in the middle of my doctorate degree when she passed away.
Wow.
So talk about writing something. I was writing my
Yes.
dissertation and I
Oh,
felt like I couldn't finish it. Actually, I thank God I had the school mentor and professor I did, because he kept holding me up and holding me accountable.
Good.
And I don't, if I didn't have him, and I mean, obviously my husband and my kids, like they were all very supportive, but I felt stuck, right? Because she
Yes.
was the one I kept reading the dissertation to, like, am I doing well with this? Because it had a lot to do with actually leadership. I mean, it has more to do with burnout and employees and
hmm
things like that, but it
hmm
had to do with serving people. And her
Yes.
opinion mattered so much to me that I was stuck. So I
Wow.
can resonate that very well. But having it do with having your legacy, I mean, I could not even think of a better way to say that. That is a beautiful way to circle that into exactly what the listeners need to hear, because most people
hmm
think legacy is decades away from anything, right? But
Exactly.
if you're building things on a random Tuesday, it doesn't mean you have to stop everything, right? It ties into everything you're doing every single
That's
day. I
right.
think some people, yeah, a lot of people think, oh, I don't need to worry about this now because my legacy is after I'm gone. Well, what are you building now to get to that? Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. We have more of an impact than we really realize. And I think, and
Oh,
it's not
absolutely.
about as although we like the followers, the likes, the comments, and
Of
all that,
course.
and we want them. I think it's important that we also recognize that this legacy is the life you live every day in front of other people and how you
Yeah.
show up with people that also leaves a legacy. And sometimes it's
Yeah.
not something you can quantify. And I
No.
want us to be okay with that. You can't
Yeah.
count all of those things.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. But I really want to say this, circling back to your book just for one more minute. I'm sorry. But for the people who have not read it yet, and they're going to go to the show notes and find out, I want to throw that out there again, and they're going to pick it up, give us maybe an idea or of a chapter that you'd want them to really hone in on. Obviously, we want them to read the whole book, obviously, right?
yeah.
But is there a moment, because I can even think in my books, like what is the moment you feel like you want them to go back and resonate with? Sorry.
Yeah, there are a couple of stories. One, there's an inspirational story about my mother and how she actually inspired me to do more. As I look at the chapters, I'm thinking that I think chapter 6, when I think about the influence that we have in the world, I think my chapter 6 on your influence, how your influence can actually serve others. I think you will enjoy the stories that I talk about how people use their influence to be in service to others. And a lot of times we think of our
Yeah.
influence as just the number of social media stats and things that we get. But a lot of times it's
Yeah.
our own personal influence. Tracy, you have an audience you're influencing. You're giving people a gift when you bring us onto your show because you're allowing us to interact with people who trust you already with new
Yeah.
information and to open up a world of people to us. And you're doing exactly what my chapter 6 talks about. It is how do you use your influence in service to others?
I
And
love
I
that.
think that's probably one of my favorite chapters. I love all the
Yeah.
stories about my mother, of course, and some of the
Yeah.
amazing things I saw her do growing up and the various
Yeah.
things that happened in my family and in my career, because I've learned quite a bit along my career. I've learned a lot through life happening. I have
Yeah.
experienced loss of individuals who are very close to me in my life. And some of that is shared in the book as when I talk about serving and serving others. But also, I think if I would hone back in on one chapter, I think chapter 6 is the chapter for this time, your influence.
Okay, well, I'm going to buy the book later today and I'm going to read chapter 6 first.
Absolutely.
Out there for everybody. I actually had talked to my daughter about your book and she'd already asked me, hey, when you get done with this, make sure you give me the link so I can buy it. Because she also, as I've told you, is very much a servant leader and
Yes.
loves to, and our son is as well. But in this, I really want to say that you're clearly living this life out, right? Because there are people in this world that and it doesn't matter what level there are, right? From all the way in the top of politics, all the way to the bottom of nobody,
Yes.
that
Yes.
are doing nothing in this world. If they're saying something that they don't bring to action, right?
Mhm.
If they're saying something that they're not doing, then
Yeah,
what are you really doing to help yourself and help those around you, right?
that's right.
And yeah. And so bringing the concept of how people think that serving others is a weakness, really, that is all of it in a nutshell, is what are you
Yes.
really doing? If you're not
Right.
serving other people, are you serving yourself? Because I talk to people, I talk to my clients, I talk to my students because I teach classes also,
Mhm.
and I talk to them about showing up for yourself. In order to
Yes.
show up for other people, you have to show up for yourself first, right? And but
Absolutely.
that's also a form of service, isn't it? Wouldn't you
It
say?
is, and I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you, there's a book, I mean, there's a chapter in the book where I talk about self-serving. I give one of my keynote speeches that I give,
Yeah.
serving self-service is not selfish, it's vital. I talk
Yeah.
about how we check our vital signs to assess how we're doing in many healthcare environments. A lot of my stories and things come from all the different sectors that I work in, so whether
Of
it's
course.
finance, healthcare,
Yeah.
or nonprofit work, I have all these antidotes and notions
Yeah.
that I use. And so when I talk about serving yourself, it's not selfish. And we have to
Right.
break out of thinking that the same way we
Yeah.
have to break out of thinking that service is soft or
Right.
it's not, it's a strength. And the same way we have to stop thinking that serving ourselves is selfish. It's not. It's actually the most important thing we can do.
Yeah.
Because if you want to be in a posture and a position where you can help and serve others, you do have to take care of yourself first. And so I love giving that speech whenever
Yeah.
I'm invited into segments where it resonates with the theme of the organization, because people have this aha moment. And most of the time they think when I come speak, I'm getting ready to tell them how to pour into other people and give of themselves so much that there's no more of them. They've depleted themselves. And
Yeah.
quite frankly, it's the opposite. I am a
Yeah.
true believer in taking care of yourself, being good to yourself first,
Yeah.
and then absolutely sharing that with other people.
Yeah, I love that. You know what that made me think of, though, because I do have listeners, males, females. I even have young people listening. I'm so proud of my wide variety of listeners that I have. But
Absolutely.
in that, I want to talk about for a moment. Actually, I don't even have this in my bullets that I wanted to talk about, but in what you were talking about really made me think about the listeners, right?
Mhm.
And what I want them to really resonate with. And the thing is, men. Okay. Males,
Mhm.
men in this world are taught to not necessarily be servant
Correct.
leaders. It's
Correct.
not hard enough, right? You have to be authoritative. You have to be
Yes.
autocratic. If you're not autocratic, you're not doing enough, right? And then
Mhm.
you have these women like myself who did have a job where if I wasn't autocratic enough, then I was looked at as weak because I'm a woman. But let's
Yes.
talk to all these listeners that we do have. And really across the board, being a servant leader is
Yes.
really everybody, right? It's everybody. It's not men, it's not women, and because it's not weakness, right? I need to say
Absolutely.
that again. Yeah,
Absolutely. Service is not weak, and serving others
yeah,
is not a weakness or a
right.
soft. And I think resonates the way you said that, because with men, a lot of times you're right. We send the wrong messages to our young boys as
Yeah,
they're growing up, and we don't
yeah,
allow them. But I don't know a person alive that isn't touched when they see a father hugging their children or things of
right.
that nature. And
Yeah,
that's what we
right.
expect.
That's what we
We
want.
all appreciate from our own
Yeah,
fathers and things. And so I think we have to really speak to men and let them know, as we define and look at masculinity in our society, we have to redefine those things that really make you feel masculine, or that you are the father figure, the lead, or the head. You have to realize your example is going to
yeah,
resonate with the people around you. So if you show up as a servant, you're going to help change the narrative that service is not soft. And so I want them to really be the
yeah,
poster children for this movement,
yeah,
because when they start doing and letting people know, oh, this person can be a servant and they can hold me accountable and they can be a disciplinarian and they can be a leader and they can be
yeah.
all of these amazing things. It's not about just unchecked power that makes
That's right.
you the masculine male energy, the what we our society wants to believe. It's really in showing us that you can be the person that helps provide and protect and take care of, and yes, serve others and be the example that
Yeah,
may not have been
word.
there for you, but you
Yeah.
have the right and the ability to change that right now.
Yeah, there it is, right? Be the example to those around you, right? Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're in a senior role in whatever job you're in, people don't really realize how people watch them. I did a podcast, I think it was a solo podcast recently, where I had said, you don't really realize how much people watch you. You just don't realize it no matter what role you are in this world. And it's funny because you said movement. When I started Got Your Six, I kept saying to people, it's not a podcast, it's a movement. That's
Yes,
what this is.
yes,
The whole
yes.
shift of how we think, how we learn, how we talk to people, how we treat others. That's what Got Your Six is all about. And that's why I started it. I really enjoyed this conversation. But before we let our listeners go, I always ask when I have guests on, in fact, even when I do a solo episode, because I do sometimes do solo episodes when I have a great idea, I like to end every conversation with one thing our listeners can act on right now. When they leave this, they listen to the podcast and they walk away from it. What is one thing that you think you could leave them that they could not change their world, right? But
Mhm.
change one thing or make a difference or make a shift. What do you think you'd like to share with them?
I would say what I'd hope is that they take immediate action now and
Yeah.
stop thinking about serving others as something huge.
Yeah.
There are people that you will cross today that may need a smile. It's that simple. And when we stop thinking that service and serving others is something that has to be something that takes a lot of thought, planning, preparation, and things of that nature, then we start being more natural with it, more intentional. So start with the
Yeah.
find people that you pass today and you can simply give them a smile. The second thing that I'd say is easy is take a phone call, make a phone call to one person, not a text
Mm,
message, phone call to one person that has been doing some work that you admire or a friend that you know is working on
mm.
something and just give them a kind word. It does not
Love
cost
that. Yeah.
much. It might be the very call that lets them keep moving. And that's
Yeah.
just how simple serving others is and why I believe it's a superpower. It could be the reason someone keeps holding on today.
Yeah, I love that. Literally almost brought me to tears. I That is such a beautiful story to leave with our listeners as they make this leadership change or listening to our conversation and the one shift away from maybe changing status but truly serving the people around them. I just really love that. I appreciate that you have allowed them to end with that because I think too many times we get so caught up in ourselves that we
Yes.
forget that just a word. I mean, my granddaughter, she's 11 years old. We walked around the mall the other day. I don't talk to strangers a whole. I grew up in New York City, so I don't talk to strangers a whole lot. But she was walking around and she was literally high fiving people and asking them, of course, because she doesn't want to be intrusive, like asking them, "Hey, you want a high five?" Almost every single person, adult to child, walked by her and gave her a high five. But think about just the change, right? I mean, the
That
change.
almost brings me to tears. She
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
probably showed people that this world still has
yeah.
such goodness
So,
in it that
yeah,
kudos to her.
kudos to her, right? But it just made me think about what you were saying. It actually was what reminded me that she did it. At first, I thought, this is weird. It's kind of like those people that walk around trying to hug people. But
Yes.
honestly, there were an older gentleman. At first, he kind of looked at her funny, and then he realized what she was trying to do, and he double high fived her. He was like, "Let me double high five," right? I mean, he was really excited. But
Probably
I
made
think
his
those,
day.
yeah, I mean, it was a lot of other people. The whole time we were walking through the mall, she was doing it. But it's
Right.
that little step, it's that little
It
thing.
is.
You then
Yeah.
realize that you're going to change somebody's world. That if you just do it, like,
And you
and
do it because you just want to see it done. She's not going to go back and find any of those
yeah,
people in the mall, but she gave out goodness all day while
yeah,
you all were walking
yeah,
around. And that's going to move throughout the earth. And who knows where that love will end up. So
that's right. Maybe they'll go high five other people, hopefully, right?
exactly. Who knows? If you see a trend coming, you'll know where it started. So
That's right. Well, teacher,
love it.
thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your heart in the work that you do. And thank you for sharing your next step in your life with us as the
Yeah,
first people. I know our listeners are walking away with something they can put into practice today. And to everyone listening, leadership was never measured by the title on a business card, it's measured by the people who are stronger because you showed up. Right. That's the biggest thing. Is there one last thing, anything else you'd like to say before we say goodbye to our listeners?
no, you know what? I just will let them know that I am super excited about this book. I pray that anything
Ah,
that resonates with them, that they share it with someone else, have deep conversations. I hope to change an intentional dialogue and conversation
yeah.
around families, around communities, around boardrooms. Enjoy learning how you can make your service a superpower.
I love that. Your superpower. And you know what? I think that when you finally get done with the workbook, the companion book, let me know. You'll have to come back on so we can share that with our listeners because they'll have to
Absolutely.
understand what they need to do with it, right? Where are you going to go
Yes,
now? You bought the book. Now you got the companion book. I'm so excited about all of it. I'm
absolutely.
so excited that you've been here with me today. And I look forward to all the things to hear your name in the future.
I appreciate that, Tracy. Thank you so much. And thank you for continuing to do all that you do to serve us and all the service you've already given out into the world. And I pray it continues to
Oh,
return to you multifold.
Oh, thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it. If today's conversation challenged you, the way you think or the way you feel, do me a favor, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with another leader who needs to hear this. Every share helps us reach more and more people who are committed to leading with a purpose. My goal for Got Your Six is a movement. It's not just an episode at a time. We're changing the world one voice at a time. And if you're ready to help us keep it growing, share this with the people around you. I'd also love to welcome you and have you come be a part of one of my membership groups. There'll be a link in the show notes that give you an opportunity to have a collaborative call with me to talk about maybe being a part of the membership groups to develop deeper, real practical work in leading well, accountability, clarity, and applications you can put to use every single day. Until next time, y'all, lead with courage, lead with purpose. And as always, leadership is not about perfection. It is about progress. It's about showing up for others, showing up for yourself. Look in the mirror and understand who you are as an individual and the effect that you have every single day on the people around you. It's about doing the work. And remember, I've got your six.
Leadership isn't found in comfort, it's forged in fire. Life will test you. When you create stability through your choices, you don't just calm the chaos, you build momentum. Stay steady, stay strong, be decisive, and most of all, lead with intention. And remember, I've got your six.